Michelle Lee here with the Sophia Mystery School. I am your spiritual and personal development mentor and coach, and I am super inspired and fired up to share a little bit of information with you today about how I do shadow integration play with my clients, both privately and in my Making Light of Your Shadow group program. When you tune in, say hello. If this is something, if my message today is something you know somebody else needs to hear, please feel free to share this message. It is super important. And anyway, with shadow integration work, I've talked to a lot of people, and I've gotten some confusing messages, and I was just like, I don't understand where this is coming from. I've had someone share with me that the problem with shadow integration is that it creates more shadows, which I thought was confusing. I'm like, I don't understand this piece. And just different things people are saying about their shadow, and I'm like so confused. Finally, I think I figured it out. I found somebody doing shadow work on TikTok that totally freaking explained it to me. Like, oh, I get it now. I understand this confusion. So here's what I don't do in shadow integration: play. And I want to call it play. It's not work. It's not, it doesn't have to be cumbersome and scary. But what I found in this person is that their training and how they are doing shadow integration is focusing on trauma and diving into the trauma and finding how shadows were actually created through trauma, which, yeah, a lot of our shadows are created through trauma. But what I see going wrong, and this is not how I do shadow integration, is by focusing on the trauma only, by diving in and thinking all of your shadows come out of trauma, is that it focuses the individual on being a victim. And I know there's a lot of training around trauma-informed coaches. And that makes my skin bristle a little bit, because it actually gives more power to the trauma than it gives to the individual who experienced trauma. And in my almost 30 years of coaching people, one of my greatest gifts, and it's a frequency I hold, and it's something that I can do and I have done for many, many years with my clients, is being present with them in their pain, having compassion for the suffering that their trauma has caused. And I have worked with women who have been molested, incested, raped several times, and their identity was really wrapped up in those experiences. And instead of me identifying with them as a victim in that moment, what I am really good at, whether I'm doing shadow integration play with a client or we're doing EFT or hypnosis, is seeing the truth, the capital T truth of the divine being in front of me. And so what my shadow integration play does is it takes my clients out of victim mode. There's a strong program on this planet. It's defined as the victim triangle. You can read more up on it if you Google it, what the victim triangle is. And when you're on the victim triangle anywhere, you're either the victim, the hero, or the perpetrator. Most people identify with the victim. And so in my shadow integration program, Making Light of Your Shadow, and my personal coaching, my first and foremost goal with all of my clients is to take them off of the victim triangle. Hey, Angel, so glad to see you here. Is to take them off the victim triangle. Okay, so you're not a victim. And if you're anywhere on the victim triangle, if you see yourself as a victim, you see other people as a victim. How you see yourself is how you see others. And so when we address the shadow through the idea of, oh, I have been traumatized, being trauma informed, it puts you squarely in the victim. Whereas in my shadow integration play and programs, it's to take you out of victim, which takes you out of perpetrator, which takes you out of hero. And it puts you into the mind of who you are at a higher level, that you're more than just this human form. And so being more than this human form, you begin to see yourself as a divine being, as your higher self, as source. So that is my goal when I work with people, is we focus on who you truly are as source, right? Yes, you may have had trauma. Yes, that trauma gets to be addressed. In my last Making Light of Your Shadow program, people had tremendous transformation without ever going into their trauma. It was simply in moving into and seeing themselves through a higher level, through the eyes of I am source rather than I am victim. Because the bottom line is, no matter what we experience, and I talk about this a lot, no matter what we experience, even as children, if you are truly committed to being the master creator in your life and being the master manifester, you can either focus on healing trauma, or you can focus on being divine source. It's two different frequencies if you sit with it. So if you think about, and I want you to feel this in your body, if you think about, I must heal from my childhood. I must heal from my trauma. And feel how that feels in your body. Hello, Saku. Thank you for being here. I hope I didn't torture your name. Now tune into, I choose to live from divinity. I choose to be embodied as source. Yeah, good, Angel. It's low. So I choose to see my life as an empowered being. And notice how that feels. It's like, okay. And so many people get stuck in the healing process and actually loop there. And that's what my shadow integration play does, is it stops that looping and helps you to see that no matter what trauma you have experienced any time in your life, your higher self, your soul, actually wanted to have that experience. It was an actual creation for you. And if you look back at your past, at anything you've done, if you had a horrible mother, a horrible, abusive, neglectful mother, if you look back at that and you're a mother now, has it informed you on what kind of mother you've wanted to be? Right? So there was actually a gift. Like so many teachers talk about, it gives you contrast, right? So that horrible experience that you had as a child actually becomes a gift for you. And when you can find the gift, when you come from this space that every experience in my life was an act of love rather than an act of victimization, when you can come from the space that the perpetrator in your life was actually the greatest gift in your life, so that you have the opportunity to experience what it feels like to be that you don't matter, or that what it feels like to have the opportunity to experience forgiveness, right? It's two different ways to look at your experience. Either one, I was victimized by my childhood, or the other one, I am a divine creator who chose these experiences so I can become who I am. Very different. So when you do shadow integration with me, my goal is that you come out of the victim triangle. So you no longer see yourself as victim, which then you can no longer see yourself as perpetrator, which then helps you eliminate people pleasing or looking outside in the world for validation or approval. When you do shadow integration play with me through either private coaching with me or in the group process, making light of your shadow, you recognize that if you're in the victim triangle, you're moving around it. You're either being the victim or the perpetrator, or you feel like you need to slide in and be somebody's hero, which is a very disempowering situation. You're disempowering yourself, you're disempowering everyone around you. But instead, you begin to look through the eyes of, ooh, how did I create this? And if you're on my mailing list, I just sent out, or actually we're making posts of the emails too on Facebook as well, of 3 ways that I got onto the victim triangle last week, in feeling victimized by the coffee shop, feeling victimized by a woman in the salon chair, feeling victimized by my husband, right? And really looking at, oh, how did I create those situations? And what was the fear and the woundedness that was triggered by these situations? Instead of diving deep and going, oh, you know, it's a deep love. We find a deep love for ourselves. And when a trauma comes up, we can move through it quickly. It's like, for example, people say, well, this runs so deep. This is so deeply embedded in me. And what I like to remind my clients, and I'm reminding you now, that what is even more deeply embedded within you is divine truth, truth with a capital T. And the truth is, there's a part of you, the divine part of you, that is always safe and that cannot be traumatized, that cannot be harmed in any way. And so doing the shadow integration play with me is an empowering factor. You reclaim the power that you've hidden behind the trauma, right? We hid it in our shadow. That's what the shadow is becoming aware of the power that you have hidden from yourself so we can have this 3D experience, right? We're not beings that are trapped in this, oh my God, this horrible 3D world, oh my God, it's awful here. We're actually divine beings who came from the light and wholeness, right? That came from the light and wholeness where everything was good, everything was calm, and we got bored. It was like, what would it feel like to have something to forgive? What would it feel like I don't belong? What would it feel like to feel unloved and unaccepted? And so we dropped down through the frequencies, through the densities, we dropped into 3D, we took on this body that makes it look like we are separate, not only from God or source, but from each other. And then we create these experiences to know the feeling of not being loved, to be the abuser even, right? Like, you have to forget who you are as source to be able to cause harm for somebody, right? You have to be in a state of fear. We are all capable of causing harm. We are all capable of causing pain. And that's part of the human experience. So now I feel like I'm just rambling. I wanted to support you in understanding in how I do shadow integration play. And it's a very empowering experience. You begin to see how you are always being fulfilled. You are never being, we're never being neglected or not getting what we want. We're always getting what we want. We just may not always be aware that we have unconscious desires that are being fulfilled. We're always being fulfilled. So with that being said, know that I'm hosting a group, Making Light of Your Shadow, which starts in August, mid-August, group program. And I'm also taking on private clients for private mentorship. So if you're curious about this, about how it can support you, if shadow integration play is your next step, you know, it's definitely, it's profound, it's accelerated. If you're willing to dive deep into it, you're going to reclaim that power that you hid for yourself. So Tori is going to pop in below my calendar link. Let's talk. I would love to chat with you about how your life can be transformed as you reclaim your power from your shadow. Yes, so thank you for tuning in. If this message, if you know anybody who could hear this message, please share. Say a little bit about what stood out to you, what I shared in this message. If you just share it, most people don't watch, but if you share it and leave a little note about what really stood out to you or why you're sharing it, why you think it's important, more people will get to hear the message. And I so much appreciate you for tuning in. Mwah. See you next time. Bye for now.